Hey, what's up my friends? Baldwin here from the Speaker Lab. Welcome back to another speech breakdown where today we're going to be taking a talk from Scott Stratten. Now Scott is a very popular keynote speaker and this is a presentation he gave a couple of years ago at the National Speakers Association. Now I've seen this talk, it's been a minute since I've seen it, but Scott not only he's a phenomenal speaker and gives great content, but also because he's speaking to an audience of speakers, he gives some great tips and strategies that you're not going to want to miss out on. All right, so let's get right into it. Enjoy this breakdown with Scott Stratten.
Hello, room full of my competitors. How are you? I'm going to be totally transparent and honest this whole time on how you can beat me out for gigs. No, I'm going to lie and tell you the wrong things. Always offend your audience. Always swear. The more vulgarity, the better. And damn it's not a swear word. Oh, damn it is a swear word. Okay, so we're going to take that out of the talk.
Now this is a good example of Scott really recognizing and understanding his audience, right? So if he was speaking to a group of accountants or a group of bankers or a group of marketers or whoever he would be speaking to, this stuff obviously isn't going to work and it wouldn't be something that he would be putting in the talk. So speaking specifically to his audience, which in this case happens to be a room of speakers. So this as an opening works really, really well because again, it kind of breaks some of the tension there of a speaker speaking to a group of other speakers.
I just want to cover something right now. Should I address the man bun now or at the end of the talk? Imagine a room full of 800 insurance salesmen in suits, and then this walks out. You know, talk about vulgarity. I can't hear them, I just hear. Melissa, that wasn't a swear word, I mouthed it.
Okay, so Scott's done a good job here of addressing what might be perceived as like an elephant in the room, right? So this is probably something he does in his normal presentations, his normal talks, where he comes out and addresses the way that he looks in terms of, he kind of looks like a biker guy. He's got the tattoos, he's got the black polo, the black jeans, the slick back hair, the man bun, all of these different things that he can call out. So if you are someone who either the way that you dress or the way that you talk or the way that you look or anything like that, that the audience is immediately like they're thinking or they're talking or they're having a conversation in their head. If you can interject in that conversation and call it out and make it like poke fun at it, that's okay. So there's a friend of actually Scott and I, another speaker, Neen James, and one of the things with Neen is her voice is very unique. It's very the way she describes it, it's very cartoonish, right? It's a very high pitch, almost squealy, squeaky type of voice. Now she's an incredible presenter and she's a dynamite powerhouse, but it's something that if you're not used to or you're unfamiliar with, that it might catch you off guard. So she calls it out right out of the gate. So it just kind of puts it aside. Hey, here's this thing that you guys are already thinking about and all already aware of. Let me call it out. Make sure it's not a big deal. We good? Okay, now let's move on with the rest of the presentation. So Scott's done a good job with that here right out of the gate with this talk.
So it didn't count. We're still, mic's still on. Okay, good. It's so funny. So not only am I rocking a man bun, I'm also Canadian. Thank you. I pay well. So I have a message from Canada to you, America, about your current election process.
Okay, let's make two observations on this. One is that anytime that you're going to be doing something about current events or anything that's topical, make sure that it is very, very current, okay? So this was recorded in, you can see at the top there, 2016. This was a couple months before the US presidential election, and so it is very aware on the radar of the audience of what's going on in the political climate, right? Versus if you came in today and said, hey, election season's coming up, how about that election? That's crazy. It's like, well, I mean, at this moment, at the time of this recording, we're still a year and a half away from election season. So it's not really on people's radar. Or if you're like, hey, I want to talk about the winner of Survivor from season 4, you know, several years ago. Like it's just no longer relevant. It's just not on people's radar. So it's not going to land as well. The other thing, again, is in this context where he is mouthing some type of cuss word here. I personally, every speaker is different, and we've talked about this. If you're curious, like what are my thoughts on using curse words or cuss words within a presentation, go watch the Gary Vee speech breakdown, and we'll link up to that here. But Generally not a fan of this, him mouthing it. He probably talked with the event planner and gave them a little heads up that he was going to do this as a bit. And so in this context, it works, but it's just something that, again, you got to be aware of and make sure that the event planner is aware of as well. Now, he also did a good job here of just letting that play out, right? Of just letting the applause, letting the laughter, just him even just smiling adds a couple of seconds to it there. So there's no need for him to, I have a message from Canada, what's going on with your election cycle, and then go right into the next bit. No, just like let that moment hang there. So silence does a really, really good job of that. And even him smiling, I think lets the audience, like gives the audience permission to continue laughing or to continue to enjoy the moment and enjoy the joke.
The thing is, though, I play off first impressions, right? And I play off that, and I come out like they're like, oh, it's amazing. People see that, and they do this to me. They're like, oh, well, you've got that. It's your brand. It's your thing. It's that badass thing. I'm like, yeah, I got tattoos to get keynotes. I would, by the way, get tattoos to get keynotes. If that's what gets keynotes, I would get tattoos to get. I am an entire talk prostitute. I'm a talk-prostitute. I would do anything to get a gig. It beats working every day, right? It totally does.
So you get another example of just pausing and letting the laughter continue or letting the applause break continue without having to interrupt it and jump forward.
Jobs, well, then I talk to them. I'm like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm so tired. I had to talk for 40 minutes 6 days ago. But I leave it all on stage, so, woo, what did you do? I mine coal. It's about the same. But do you have to talk to 160 dentists? No? That's hard, okay? Tough crowd, that's hard to do. But I play off it. It's like, oh no, Scott, you wear Doc Martens, and you got your beard, and you got the shirts, and you don't wear a suit. I'm like, you understand, you want authenticity and transparency? I wear Doc Martens because they're orthopedically correct for my back. That is the least badass thing to do with shoes. I wear a black shirt because I used to sweat a lot, and black doesn't show sweat as good as, let's say, light blue, right? I wear these jeans because they make my arse look good, and I put my hair back because I'm lazy, right? I have a beard because I forgot to shave one summer and looked in the mirror finally at the end of August and went, not bad, and I kept it. Right? I pull my hair back because I'm just too cheap to go get a haircut. This is how it works. There is no brand. My brand in speaking is Scott. That's it. I have no brand thought, I have no brand strategy, is that I talk like this, and I talk like this off stage. It's exhausting to hang out with me, but I talk like this off stage, I talk like this on Twitter, I do this on an interview. The best way to be authentic is be you. I actually don't like the word authentic, I think it's been overused. It's simply just be you. And the problem is in our game, in the speaking world, we try to mimic sometimes. Oh, that worked really well, or this worked really well, and I want to do that. No. If you are your authentic self as a speaker, you will have no competition. I don't mean that in a cheesy way. Please don't start holding hands and singing We Are the World. I mean that honestly. Good song, I'll give it that, but let the professionals do it. So what I mean by that is simply when you're you, that's what you bring to the table. And then your experiences and your thoughts and the way you handle things, that's how we make ourselves different.
Now, he makes a good point here. And one of the things that I get asked a lot about is, Grant, when I'm getting started, what should I use as my domain? Should I use my brand or me as a person, or what should I use? So I always recommend that you use your name as the brand, because when an organization is hiring Scott, they are hiring Scott Stratten. They're not hiring, and Scott probably has a company name or a business name or something that he uses to file taxes or all that stuff, or that they write the checks to. But Scott is ultimately what they are hiring. They are hiring him. So even if like I know in our case, my name is Grant Baldwin and our company name is the Baldwin Group, right? But nobody hires the Baldwin Group. That's who they write checks to. That's what I file taxes as. All of that stuff is like all the company stuff. But ultimately, if someone's hiring Grant to speak, they're hiring Grant. They're not hiring some type of company. So I think this is really a good point for all speakers to recognize that you are the product. You are the brand. That is ultimately what organizations and events are hiring, is you, not some companied version of you.
Different in speaking. That's how you make that authentic. I think authentic, I think transparent are verbs. It's what we do. It's how we act. I've had the honor and pleasure and disadvantage of meeting some of the biggest people in this industry. I've had the honor of working with them. I've had the honor of sitting down with them. And some of my heroes, it uses that definition, never meet your heroes, because they were horrible people. And they were the ones on stage that preached love and authenticity. I saw a speaker once talk about you have to be authentic in marketing while their Twitter account auto-tweeted their own quotes. I'll give you a second to think about that for a second. And for some of you, jotting that down is a good idea, get out. I didn't even know you could do that. That's amazing. I can engage without even being there. I don't know why I just licked a pen, but that's what I did. So that's the thing. So for me,
Now my guess is a line like that, I just licked a pen, I don't know why I licked that pen. It's probably something that he has used before and something that he knows like works, but it looks like it's something that's just off the cuff. So I think any type of good presentation or talk, like 90-95% of it, he probably knows where this talk is going. And then there's a couple pieces where he probably just throws in some stuff. But when you throw in some stuff and kind of have some of those raw, real moments with the audience that are unscripted, that are off the top of the head, that are just kind of like, throw it out there and see what happens. Some of those types of things are going to work. So my guess is at one point on some presentation, several months or several years ago, he did that and said, I don't even know why I licked the pen, got a good reaction, and mental note, I need to use that next time I do that. So pay attention to those type of things that feel spontaneous, but it also could be something that's planned, is something that you just know what that line is that you're going to use whenever you in this certain situation or circumstance. So for example, you may see some speakers who, if a phone was to go off, or someone coughs or sneezes real loud, or is there some distraction that happens in the room, some speakers it looks like, wow, they just said that line right off the top of their head. No, they probably didn't. They probably have had that line queued up in other situations where that has happened, and so they know if a cell phone goes off, I know what my go-to line is. It looks like it's spontaneous. It looks like it's off the cuff, but I just know where I'm going with that line if that circumstance or situation happens.
Speaking journey started out. By the way, I solely make my living doing keynotes. It's pretty rare in the industry to do that. I don't do training. I don't do workshops. I don't like doing work. But I put air quotes around it, so it's okay, right? I don't like putting a lot of effort into things. Full stop. That's a period right there, by the way. I just don't. I enjoy my life, I enjoy my free time, I enjoy my family. I love this. And nothing else outside of doing this. I love this. Ever since I was 12 years old, sitting in my home, I live just west of Toronto, so we're just across the lake from Buffalo. And when I was 12 years old, sitting in my living room and watching TV, and since back then in the 30s, we didn't have remotes. So, like whatever channel was on, I'm like, I'm not getting up to change it. So it just would stay there for like 4 days on the channel. And it was on a WNED Buffalo feed, a pledge drive for PBS. And what was being shown at the time? The Les Brown talk was being shown. And if you donated $37, you got the VHS or beta cassette of Les's talk. And I watched it, and I just went, that. I want to be that. Well, not exactly Les, we're not the same skin color, but I mean like that. I want to be that. That's what I want to do. And from 12, before that I wanted to be a firefighter and a vet, I wanted to be this and an astronaut, all these things, but they all required a lot of work. So I'm like, that.
Now that's another good example. Did you notice that I'm saying the word before he said the word? So anytime that you can do a joke where the audience gets there before you do and you just finish the thought, but it's the thought they already had, it creates good humor.
How do I get paid to yell at people? And then leave and have no implementation problems whatsoever? I want to be able to get on stage and have everybody look at me and I'm like, you're terrible at this, you need to do this, I'm going to go home now and go home. That's my ideal job. So I saw it. So I knew that was going to be what I want to do. I could always talk. Here's my confession. It's a horrible confession that'll make you hate me because it's not a confession at all. I don't get nervous. All right, you hate me. I don't get nervous at all. I never have. Some people call it a mental problem or illness, that a synapse doesn't fire to say, hey, crap your pants. Like, you're about to go on stage. I sit, just right now, I sat back there you can put a heart monitor on me. It's just like, I'm just ready to go. This is what I was put on this earth to do, was not dress as well as I should and come on stage and get pissed off. It's what I do because I love it. So from 12, I'm like, that's what I want. And I go through, I only graduate high school and I only graduate college because I have this ability, that I can do this. Because you know why? Because most can't. And when you can do something most can't, you do it really well. You don't even have to be a great speaker to be deemed great. You only have to be mediocre because everybody else sucks at it.
It's true.
That's a good tweet, by the way. I'll wait. At unmarketing, you only have to be hashtag NSA16, hashtag man bun. Yeah, okay. But that's the point. So I went into my world and I did it. I graduated college. I actually took human resources in college. I know, right? And I had to get out of HR because I realized I hate people. And it was a poor combination. I don't know if HR made me hate people or I already did, but anyway, it's, tomato, tomato. So I went into it, and then I got a job. It was 2 years at Goodwill Toronto's head office as an HR generalist, and I loved it. It's one of the only positions in a company where you change people's lives, good and bad, and I thought it was great. And one of the aspects of it, though, was training. That's what I love to do. So then after 2 years, that's as long as I could last, I got a job as a national sales training manager of a packaging company. I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap. I'm going to say that again for this entire side of the room that didn't laugh. I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap.
Who do you wink at there? What was that?
You think what you talk about is BS? I sold air. I used to run 2-day training schools on it. 16 hours of training about that's it. And I had to convince them our air was better than their air, our competitors. I did that for 2 years, and that's the last day I ever had a real job. That was it, and that's what happened. So I worked.
Now, there's also an opportunity there with what he's, as he's talking about the bubble wrap, and he's making the sound effect. It's a good opportunity to have a simple prop. And so if you're going to do a prop, I always like to think about what are simple props, meaning something that I don't necessarily have to travel with, something I don't have to like ship ahead, something that's not going to be like a big complicated thing to construct or put together. So for example, for me, in one of my presentations, I use an illustration that's basically a pitcher and a glass of water, and that's it, right? So I don't have to carry those, I don't have to travel with them. I just ask the client ahead of time, hey, can I get a pitcher and a glass of water? And that's all I need. So in Scott's case, maybe if he uses this story regularly, I'm not sure if he does or not, it may be the type of thing like, hey, can you give me a piece of bubble wrap? That's it. Whatever size, whatever you need, preferably the bigger one so it really pops and people can hear it and sense it. But having that as a prop is just a simple little add-on that he could do that kind of enhances the story.
So then I thought, okay, I want to do more. I want to do my own thing. And at the time, since my background was HR, and I really think speaking is not just about theatrics or performance, or where if I'm standing on this side of the stage or that frickin' side of the stage or whatever it is, what it happens to do is, do you have the credibility to say something with an audience who's willing to hear it, and can you deliver it in a way that's enthralling enough that they want to listen to it, that they're not distracted by their phone and Pokemon Go is going to get them running out of the room, right? By the way, people say you have to turn off your phones. No. If your talk is not good enough that it will distract them from playing Angry Birds, Candy Crush, or Pokemon Go, that's not the audience's fault. That's yours.
Well said.
They are not 11 years old. And if they are, they're better on their phone than 40-year-olds. Anyways, your job is to make them not want to be on the phone. My job is to make their mind so screwed up that they want to tweet what I'm saying, but they don't want to miss what I'm saying. They're like, no, and they're screwed up. That's on me. That's on me. So I decide my background being HR, I can do work-life balance, I can talk about it. Work-life balance, I can make a company called Work Your Life. That's what I could do. So I made a company called Work Your Life, and I did my own talk. Look at this. Where's this? Look at my head. I look like I'm 7. and 154 pounds. So, and apparently David Copperfield in the picture. I don't know what's happening here. So, I did my first session. It's Work Your Life, How to Enjoy Your Life with Less Stress and Better Communication. By the way, yeah, I was a speaker about enjoying life.
Now, let's also talk about this like we touched on earlier. When an organization or a group is hiring Scott, they're hiring Scott. They're not hiring Work Your Life. So in this particular advertisement from his very early days as a speaker, he's positioning the company as the go-to resource, as the brand, right? And there's pros and cons with both ways, but typically, if you want to be positioned as a keynote speaker, then they are hiring you, the person, not the company. So in this case, he's got his name up in the corner there, but again, it is, if I can get up there we go, his name right up here in the corner, but it's a very small part. It's the Work Your Life is the main thing that he's promoting here. Whereas most speakers would want to do it in reverse, and the brand, or the name, the personal name, is the thing that you really want to promote and key in on.
Life and being less stressed, if you figure that one out. So, I rented a room at our local library. I'm like, I'm gonna make this happen, I'm gonna do it. I hired a film crew, and back then that was a huge frickin' production, not 3 people with an iPhone. Right, that was huge cameras on gear coming in there. We set it all up. I went and saw the venue before. I paid like a crazy amount of money, like $39 for the room. And I went in, looked at it, beautiful white walls. I picked out this burnt orange shirt. I'm like, I'm gonna make a statement. And then we showed up for the gig, and I didn't realize they had painted the wall.
Now, great job on the timing and the delivery of that, right? So he could have showed the advertisement, could have gone to this picture, and then he could have made the joke. But he said the joke as he shows the picture, right? So it simultaneously creates the humor. Let it hang there, right?
I just threw up in my mouth. Why did I tuck it in like that? I look like a reverse MC Hammer. Parachute pant reverse for the people who didn't get the joke. So, and then I did it, and then I just can't use the video. That's the problem. I couldn't use any of it. That's what happened. So then I realized I did this, and I started doing my own thing, and I started saying, if you want to speak, speak. Do these talks. Yeah, you're going to do talks for free. You're going to do talks on your own. I get it. There were 17 people, I think, in the audience. 9 were family. 4 of them were there for yoga, which happened at 2:30. But they had nowhere to sit in the hallway because I took the chairs out of the hallway. And they had to be my crowd, my audience. And that's how it works. And I went through that, and I did that, and I did some of those type of gigs. And then I started getting talks. And then I had family medical issues, and I said I couldn't travel anymore. And then I was at home. But then we made viral videos, and that was awesome for speakers, and they went bananas. Have you ever seen those slideshows online with just pictures and cheesy text and cheesy music, right? They're very motivational. That was us. I'm sorry. We made most of those. We made 60 of them, and they just went over the whole internet, and it worked for me. Right? And we blew up the business and everything else. And I realized, okay, I know a lot about marketing and sales. I started getting into that, right? And I started talking about sales and marketing. And 2009, Twitter blew up really. 2010, the first book came out. And I just timed it. And I don't have time to now. I'll do it, and I'm doing like a double workshop. They call it a deep dive for dollars. I'm going to throw up again. So, they promised me it wouldn't be called a deep dive, so. And by deep dive, I mean I'm gonna sit on a chair on this stage and we're gonna talk. No slides, no structure, no tips, I'm gonna give you everything that got me from 2010, where my agency went bankrupt and no gigs, to 2015, and we booked $1 million in keynotes. And I'll give you everything from that. And I'll tell you.
Now, this is also a good example of if you are doing a keynote, but then you're also doing a workshop later. So 2 thoughts. One is if you are doing both at a conference, if at all possible, always try to do the workshop after the keynote. I find that whenever you do the keynote, at that point the audience has built rapport, they built connection with you, and so for a lot of them, they're like, I really like that speaker, I want to see more of that speaker, I want to learn more from that speaker, so I'm therefore willing to go to the workshop. Whereas if you do the workshop first, nobody's seen you before, nobody's familiar with you, and you're not going to draw the same type of crowd, and there's not going to be the kind of energy. So think about, again, whenever Scott goes to do the workshop, everybody that's in that workshop probably already saw this keynote, and so there's already that built-in rapport and that connection, and they're excited to see Scott. So always try to do the workshop after the keynote. The other thing too is if you have that set up, when you do a keynote and you're doing a workshop later, it's okay to do exactly what he just did and take, 30 seconds or so and tease it of, hey, by the way, if I'm gonna go deeper on this topic later, it's gonna be in room 202 at 3 o'clock, so I'd love to see you there. Make sure you come by and say, hey, something like that, just to tease. Like for some people who are looking at a conference where there's a bunch of different presentations, there's a bunch of different tracks, a bunch of different workshops, they have no idea, like this speaker on stage that I really like, oh, by the way, they're speaking again later. So it's easy for a speaker to connect the dots on that and to tell them, here's where I'm going to be speaking, here's what I'm going to be talking about. If you're interested, come see that talk later.
We're going to talk about podcasts and books and speaking and how I got in the 300 gigs between 0 to 300 to now. And now that this is all I do, that I've gotten my dream, that the irony of me showing me in front of a crowd while I stand in front of a crowd.
It's a good picture.
It's not narcissistic at all or egotistical. Look, it's me on stage. Let me show you pictures of me with some pseudo B-level celebrities now. It's not the point. What I'm saying, when I saw this picture and I went, yes, I've made it. I'm doing what I do. We were in Frankfurt in the past fall doing a talk, which blows my mind, by the way. Somebody paid us to go to Germany to talk to them. I'm like, don't you have some jackasses over there who can yell at you for nothing? And I went and we're sitting having dinner. We were literally not making this up. We were having schnitzel and beer in a stein and talking. And one of the other keynotes looks at me and goes, so, because I'm an entrepreneur my whole life. And he's like, so, and he does this. He goes, like, what's next? Like, what's your, so we're talking about hitting 1 million, and that was a cool little kind of false vanity metric, but I hit it. That was very cool. He's like, what's next? And I'm like, this. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that's about it. I have no this anymore. This is, again, I don't want to be cheesy. I'm literally living my dream from when I was 12, sitting and watching Les. I don't want it anymore. All I wanted to do my whole life was speak for a living, and now I'm doing it, and I'm good with that. Everything else requires work. I don't want to do that, right? I'm a hugely falsely popular in social media, what falsely inflates my ego and self-importance. So I know strategy about how to use social and how to get things trending and shared and moving around.
Good line. Again, another good example of putting something up. This is also a good example of, I hear speakers say sometimes like, Grant, I'm not funny, or I have a hard time with humor, or I'm not sure how to be funny or how to connect with an audience using humor. And so this is a good example of where videos and pictures can oftentimes create the humor. Scott didn't have to say anything. All he did was he put up an image and he shut up and he stayed silent, and the image is what created the humor, right? So this is a good example of where you could do something like that, where you don't necessarily have to come up with something funny. Maybe you're just using a funny picture or a funny GIF or GIF or however you say it, and you're putting up some type of funny meme, and that's what creates the humor without you having to come up with something. All right, there you go, my friends. Hope you enjoyed that speech breakdown. Great content as always from Scott. Make sure you check out his stuff over at Unmarketing. Also, as always, if you like this, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And then also in the comments below, I want you to let me know 2 things. 1, what is one thing that you learned from Scott's presentation that you are going to be applying to your next talk or presentation? And number 2, is there a speaker or presentation, TED Talk, or a speech that you would like for us to be breaking down on an upcoming video? So make sure you let us know in the comments below, and we'll catch you next time, my friend. You're awesome.